Welcome to this week's edition of Rustbelt Radio, the Pittsburgh Independent Media Center's bi-weekly review of news from the grassroots, news overlooked by the corporate media. On today's show, we'll bring you news of Pittsburgh area support for democracy in Egypt. We'll hear coverage of the Black and White Reunion's 13th Annual Summit Against Racism. We'll have news of the steelworkers' ongoing fight to hold corporate interest accountable for economic misdeeds. We hear from the ACLU of Pennsylvania on upcoming anti-immigrant legislation. Fed Up brings us the latest PA Prisons radio report. Local lawyers weigh in on police pursuit of the Jordan Miles faux press release case. And more in our local and global headlines.
Rustbelt Radio is broadcast live from WRCT studios every other Monday at 6 p.m. on 88.3 FM in Pittsburgh. It airs again the Tuesday mornings at 9 a.m. As the protests continue in Egypt, supporters of this movement are gathering all over the world to express their support for those struggling for a truly democratic Egypt. Inspired by the revolt in Tunisia, activists in Egypt called for a, quote, day of rage to protest against poverty, unemployment, and corruption that they face under the 30-year oppressive rule of autocrat Hosni Mubarak. On January 25th, a day which happens to be a national holiday to commemorate the police forces, the uprising began in Cairo and quickly spread nationwide. The Egyptian police retaliated with tear gas, water cannons, and even in some cases, live ammunition. After many of the protests were organized through online social media, internet access was cut off, cell phone networks were taken down, and a curfew was established. However, that didn't stop the uprising from growing and spreading to expatriate communities around the world. Here in Pittsburgh, dozens of people rallied together on Friday, January the 28th at Schenley Plaza in support of a democratic Egypt free of Hosni Mubarak. One of the rally organizers, an Egyptian-American, Khaled Al-Arini, talks about why he felt compelled to come out.
I'm here supporting the protesters in Egypt who demand a democracy and basic human rights and freedoms. They've had this dictator, Hosni Mubarak. He's been in power for the last 30 years, and only a very select group of people have all the wealth in Egypt, but 40% of Egyptians live on less than $2 a day. And they don't have any elected representation. Their elections are a sham, and people want democracy over there just as we want it here in America.
Here are some more sounds from the rally.
My name is Michel Hanna. I'm from Egypt, and I'm here to protest against Hosni Mubarak's regime and government in Egypt. People are protesting in Egypt mainly because of the oppression and bad living situation. Like, a lot of people are like almost homeless. Like, they had to build themselves like temporary housing, and they've been there for like 20, 25 years, and like the government doesn't want to do anything towards this problem and other problems. What matters for the Egyptian government and Hosni Mubarak regime is one thing. They want to be in charge. They want to keep things as it is through like getting aid from USA and European countries. And they're telling them a very stupid story. Like, if it wasn't for the Egyptian government, this is their story. Extremists and Muslim brotherhoods and like bad people like Al-Qaeda people will come and take over Egypt, which won't happen. Like, no way it will happen. They're afraid that they will have fight or war with Israel, which won't happen. I myself, I have no problem with Israel or any other foreign country. I just want my country to be free and prosper.
While Egyptians may not have access to a democratic process under Hosni Mubarak, we have the means here in America to voice our concerns to our elected representatives. The organizers of the event urged Americans to make our voices heard and to exercise our rights.
You can call your senators and representatives, tell them you're concerned and that you want our government to support democracy in Egypt and not prop up a dictator. Call the State Department, call the White House, just make your voice heard.
That was Khaled Al-Arini at the rally to support a democratic Egypt in Pittsburgh.